Bismillahirrahmanirrahim. Assalamu alaikum dear students. Today it is the last session on the control of respiration and we are going to learn about the oxygen debt, abnormal breathing patterns and sleep apnea. So we will begin with the first topic, which is the oxygen debt. During resting condition, we utilize a small amount of oxygen, that is approximately 230 ml per minute, but when we start exercising, the amount of oxygen utilized by the body is increased. So when a person starts exercising, there is increased pulmonary ventilation, and increased pulmonary ventilation is to supply the excess amount of oxygen to the tissues that is required by the exercising muscles. Now when a person stops exercising, the increased pulmonary ventilation does not comes to an end immediately. Instead, what happens is that hyperapnea, it continues for some time even after stopping the exercise. And during this time, after stopping the exercise, when the person is having hyperapnea, the person utilizes more oxygen. So why is there utilization of more oxygen, and how can we define oxygen debt? We are going to see. So this slide shows us the definition of oxygen debt. The oxygen debt is the difference between the amount of oxygen utilized in the post-exercise period up to the time the breathing reaches the pre-exercise level, and the amount of oxygen which the subject would have utilized in this period in resting condition is called oxygen debt. So in oxygen debt क्या है? We are basically comparing the two periods. One is the time period in resting condition, and the other period is the post exercise period. And in these two periods, we are comparing the amount of oxygen which is being utilized. So the amount of oxygen utilized in the post exercise period and the amount of oxygen utilized in the same period, the same time in resting condition. So difference in the two amounts of oxygen, that is known as oxygen debt. Suppose that a person utilizes 5000 ml of oxygen in the post exercise period till the breathing returns to pre-exercise level, and let's say the breathing returns to pre-exercise level 10 minutes after stopping the exercise, and in these 10 minutes the person utilizes 5000 ml of oxygen. So this is the amount of oxygen utilized in the post exercise period. Now we have to compare it with the amount of oxygen utilized in the resting condition. So in the 10 minutes, let's say the person utilizes 2500 ml of oxygen in resting condition. So difference of these two amounts of oxygen utilized would be oxygen debt. So difference of 5000 and 2500 ml. So this will give us oxygen debt of 2500 ml. Now what is the cause of oxygen debt? Now when a person is performing severe exercise, the oxygen requirements of the muscles are not met with. So one thing we can analyze, we can get out of this, that oxygen debt is produced more when a person does severe exercise. In severe exercise, oxygen requirements of the muscles are not met with, so they have to contract anaerobically. And when there is anaerobic contraction of the muscles, this results in formation of lactic acid. Excess lactic acid is formed during severe exercise. When exercise is over, this lactic acid is converted to pyruvic acid. Now this reaction, that is conversion of lactic acid to pyruvic acid, it requires oxygen. So oxygen is utilized for conversion of lactic acid to pyruvic acid. So that's why for these reactions in the post exercise period, the person utilizes more oxygen. Now this graph shows us the oxygen consumption during exercise. So this is the resting condition, and here the person begins to exercise, and when person begins to exercise, we can see from this graph that oxygen consumption is increasing. So this is the oxygen consumption. So oxygen consumption increases, and when person does severe exercise, there is oxygen deficit. Oxygen deficit according to the requirements of the body. So muscles contract anaerobically, and glucose, when it is metabolized, it will result in production of lactate or lactic acid. So this lactic acid is formed during severe exercise. Now when person stops exercising, this is when exercise is stopped. So we can see from this graph that when person stops exercising, this respiration does not come to a normal or pre-exercise level immediately. Respiratory changes, that is increased pulmonary ventilation and oxygen consumption, does not immediately return to pre-exercise level. Instead, it takes some time for these to return back to normal. So increased pulmonary ventilation and excess oxygen utilization will continue for some period of time. So that in this period of time, the person is utilizing excess oxygen despite the fact he is not exercising. But this excess oxygen in this time period, it is utilized in conversion of lactate to pyruvate. So this excess, the difference of this oxygen utilized in the post exercise period and the amount of oxygen utilized in the same time during resting condition is known as oxygen debt. Now this diagram shows us the conversion of lactate to pyruvate, the reactions that require oxygen. So these are the reactions occurring in the muscles, and these are the reactions occurring in the liver. Now during exercise, glucose is metabolized, it is used to produce energy for muscle contraction, and it results in formation of pyruvate. But when there is severe exercise, there is formation of lactic acid. Now when exercise is over, this lactic acid is converted back to pyruvate. So it is for these reactions we require excess oxygen in the post exercise period. So the lactate is converted to pyruvate, and then pyruvate is converted back to glucose, and it is then stored either in the muscles, or it can be transported to the it is either stored in the liver, or it can be transported to the muscles for to be utilized for muscle contraction. Now with this we have finished the topic of oxygen debt, and now we are going to start with the second topic of today's lecture, which are abnormal breathing patterns. In this we are basically going to study the periodic breathing, and in periodic breathing we are going to study the two types of abnormal breathing, the Cheyne-Stokes breathing and Biot's breathing. Now normal breathing pattern is that there is inspiration followed by expiration, and in resting condition the respiratory rate is about 12 to 15 breaths per minute, and in exercise there is increase in the respiratory rate, and the increase in the respiratory rate as well as there is increase in the depth of ventilation. So this is normal pattern. But in case of periodic breathing, this normal pattern of respiration, that is inspiration followed by expiration periodically, that is being altered, and instead there are periods of hyperapnea alternating with periods of apnea. So what is periodic breathing? Periodic breathing is an abnormal breathing pattern in which the periods of hyperapnea alternate with periods of apnea or diminished respiratory activity. Now, what is hyperapnea? Hyperapnea is deep breathing. And what is apnea? Apnea is total stoppage or cessation of respiration. So, there are periods of hyperapnea, excessive breathing, deep breathing, alternating with periods of apnea, that is no breathing, or there can be periods of diminished respiratory activity. So, in this type of breathing, that is the periodic breathing, we are going to study the two types, the Cheyne-Stokes breathing and Biot's breathing. First, we are going to talk about the Cheyne-Stokes breathing. Now, Cheyne-Stokes breathing is a type of periodic breathing which is characterized by slow waxing and waning respiration. Now, what is waxing and waning respiration? It means that periods of hyperapnea and apnea, they are slowly increasing and decreasing. Means first there is a slow increase and progressive increase in the respiratory activity, that is hyperapnea. Then hyperapnea will reach its peak and then it will then starts decreasing. So it will, the respiratory activity will decrease slowly until a point that there will complete cessation of respiratory activity and there is a period of apnea for some time, and after period of apnea again the respiratory activity will start increasing slowly, which will be a period of hyperapnea. So there is waxing and waning of respiration in Cheyne-Stokes breathing, and it occurs at a frequency of every 40 to 60 seconds. There are two important causes of the Cheyne-Stokes breathing. It can be seen in patients with severe cardiac failure. In severe cardiac failure, there is decreased cardiac output and very sluggish blood flow. Now, due to sluggishness of the blood flow, there is Cheyne-Stokes breathing, because the slow blood flows slowly to the respiratory centers or to the brain, and which causes an abnormal responsiveness of the respiratory control centers. Or it can be seen when there is damage to the brain, resulting in abnormal responsiveness of the respiratory control centers. So these are the two main causes of Cheyne-Stokes breathing. Now, what is the mechanism of Cheyne-Stokes breathing? How does the periods of hyperapnea and apnea alternate with each other? So we begin with hyperapnea period. So when person is having hyperapnea, when person is over breathing, what will happen to the oxygen and carbon dioxide in the body? You can very easily make it out that when someone is over breathing, there will be excess removal of carbon dioxide from the body and there will be increased blood oxygen. So over breathing blows off too much carbon dioxide from the body and it causes an increased blood oxygen. So blood is overventilated. When this overventilated blood it reaches the brain, it causes a decreased activity of the respiratory control centers. A decreased activity of respiratory control centers to an excessive amount, or you can simply say the decreased PCO2 in the blood will cause suppression, decreased activity of the respiratory control center, and since this is abnormal responsiveness, so there will be a decreased activity to an excessive amount, that is more than what is being required. So decreased activity of respiratory control center or the respiratory neurons will result in diminished respiratory activity, or there may be a total cessation of respiration for a short period of time. So a period of apnea will begin, in which person will not breathe at all. Now opposite changes will occur in the blood as compared to overbreathing. When someone is not breathing, you can imagine what will happen. There will be accumulation of carbon dioxide in the body and there will be decreased blood oxygen. I am repeating, when there is period of apnea, that is person is not breathing at all, carbon dioxide will be accumulated in the body and there will be deficient blood oxygen, decreased blood oxygen. This is underventilation. Now when this underventilated blood will reach the brain respiratory control centers, it will cause stimulation of the respiratory control centers in the brain. But again, due to abnormal responsiveness, the respiratory control centers will be stimulated to an excessive amount. First they are depressed to an excessive amount, then they are stimulated to an excessive amount. Now when there is overstimulation of the respiratory control centers, what will happen? There will be a period of hyperapnea again. In this way, apnea and hyperapnea will alternate with each other and the periodic breathing will continue. So this is the diagram showing us the periodic breathing of Cheyne-Stokes type and the normal breathing. In the upper part here we have a normal breathing pattern, and we can see the respiratory rate it ranges from 12 to 15 breaths per minute, so it can be 12 breaths per minute on an average. And we can see that inspiration is there and inspiration is followed by the expiration. So and then again there is inspiration and again there is expiration. Exhalation means expiration. So inspiration, expiration, then there is inspiration and expiration. So this is normal breathing pattern. In Cheyne-Stokes breathing, this normal breathing pattern is lost, and what does a patient have? Patient have a period of hyperapnea alternating with period of apnea. So you can see from this graph, from this diagram, that the period of hyperapnea does not begins abruptly. The respiratory activity is increasing progressively, increasing and reaching its peak, and then it starts decreasing progressively, decreasing till there is complete cessation of the breathing and there is period of apnea. You can see no respiratory activity in this period, and in this period there is accumulation of carbon dioxide in the body and there is decreased blood oxygen, which will stimulate the respiratory control centers to an excessive amount, and again there will be a period of hyperapnea. This diagram also shows us the Cheyne-Stokes breathing. You can see waxing and waning of respiratory activity. This is hyperapnea period, this is period of apnea, and again there is period of hyperapnea. And in the lower part of this graph you can see the changes in the concentration of carbon dioxide in the blood of which reaches the respiratory neurons, and the partial pressure of carbon dioxide in the lungs. Now the other type of abnormal breathing is the Biot's breathing. This is a second type of periodic breathing. Now again in this type of breathing we have periods of hyperapnea alternating with periods of apnea. Now the question is how it is different from the Cheyne-Stokes breathing. So the basic difference between the Biot's breathing and the Cheyne-Stokes breathing is the manner, is the way by which the periods of hyperapnea alternate with periods of apnea. So in Biot's type of periodic breathing, the periods of hyperapnea and apnea abruptly alternate with each other. There is an abrupt start of the hyperapnea which will abruptly come to an end, that is rapidly come to an end, and then there will be a period of apnea. So it is not of waxing and waning type. Waxing and waning type of periodic breathing is Cheyne-Stokes breathing, and abrupt apnea and hyperapnea alternating with each other is Biot's breathing. Now the basic cause of Biot's breathing is damage to the brain. So if there is damage to the brain, it causes the abnormal responsiveness of the respiratory control centers, and which in turn cause this type of periodic breathing in which there is periods of hyperapnea abruptly alternating with periods of apnea. And mechanism of Biot's breathing is the same as we have discussed in the Cheyne-Stokes breathing, that in hyperapnea there is excess flow of the carbon dioxide and there is increased blood oxygen which will suppress the respiratory center to cause apnea, and during apnea there will be accumulation of carbon dioxide and deficiency of oxygen in the body which will stimulate the respiratory center to cause a period of hyperapnea. The only difference is the abrupt abrupt changes in respiratory activity. So this slide shows us the normal breathing pattern, its comparison with Biot's respiration and with the Cheyne-Stokes breathing. So this is normal respiration, inspiration followed by expiration, periodically occurring one after the other. This is the Biot's breathing. We can see it is not a waxing and waning type. Abruptly hyperapnea will start and then abruptly hyperapnea will come to an end, and there will be a period of apnea, and after apnea again abruptly hyperapnea will start. And you can compare it with the Cheyne-Stokes breathing. In Cheyne-Stokes breathing we can see there is hyperapnea, but it is waxing, slowly increasing, waxing and then waning, decreasing. So progressive increase and then decrease. Here we have abrupt hyperapnea alternating with periods of apnea. So these are different breathing patterns that we have studied. The third type of abnormal breathing is Kussmaul breathing. Now Kussmaul breathing is a deep labored breathing. And it is seen in case of metabolic acidosis. It is a compensation of respiratory system for metabolic acidosis. Like one of the cause of metabolic acidosis is diabetic ketoacidosis. So patients of diabetic ketoacidosis have Kussmaul type of breathing. It is not periodic breathing, it is abnormal breathing. So in Kussmaul breathing there is deep labored breathing. Breathing is effortful, and it's seen, one cause you must remember is metabolic acidosis like diabetic ketoacidosis. So this is comparison of the normal respiration with Kussmaul breathing. This is normal respiration and this is Kussmaul breathing, deep effortful breathing due to respiratory compensation in different causes of metabolic acidosis. Now we are going to start with the last topic of today's lecture, that is sleep apnea. Or by now you know what is apnea. Apnea is absence of spontaneous breathing, and if this absence of spontaneous breathing occurs during sleep, this is called as sleep apnea. So sleep apnea is defined as absence of spontaneous breathing during sleep. We can say there are two types of sleep apnea: the obstructive sleep apnea and central sleep apnea. We have categorized the types of sleep apnea depending upon the cause. If the apnea occurs due to obstruction in the airways, this is called as obstructive sleep apnea, and if it occurs due to decreased activity of respiratory center during sleep, then it is called as central sleep apnea. So we are going to study the both one by one. First is obstructive sleep apnea. Now obstructive sleep apnea, as I just told you and as its name is also indicating, it is because of obstruction in the airways. Obstruction usually in the upper airways like in the pharynx, and it most commonly occurs in the old obese people. And the basic cause of obstruction is excessive fat masses in the neck. Most commonly it is due to the fat in the neck in obese people, or the fat in the soft tissues of the pharynx. Now this excessive fat mass in the neck or in the soft tissue of the pharynx, it causes compression of the airways. When we lie down, the pharynx is partially collapsed, and when we sleep, especially when we sleep, there is decreased tone of the muscles and there is partial collapse of the pharynx, but still it is patent enough, it is open enough to allow the air to pass through the pharynx. In people with obstructive sleep apnea, when they sleep, there is so much compression of the pharynx because of either the excess fat in the neck, or sometimes in old people there is decreased muscles, there is decreased tone, so that muscles relax so much that there is complete closure of the pharynx. It closes, due to which air cannot pass through the pharynx, so there will be apnea. So it is due to the, most commonly it is due to the excessive fat masses in the neck or in the soft tissues of the pharynx, which cause compression of the airways, and during sleep the airway is completely closed, and this will result in a episode of apnea. Sometimes obstructive sleep apnea can also be caused by other causes, like it can be caused by the obstruction in the nose. Nasal obstruction can be caused by like enlarged adenoids, or it can be caused by, sleep apnea can be caused by enlarged tonsils, or it can be caused by abnormal shapes of the palate and a large tongue. So these are different causes of obstructive sleep apnea. Now, what are the features of obstructive sleep apnea? Features are same in both obstructive and the central sleep apnea. So we are going to discuss in detail here, and in the next section when we are going to discuss the central sleep apnea, हम उसको जल्दी से skip करेंगे. So the sleep apnea, it is characterized by loud snoring and labored breathing. So two things are there, loud snoring and labored breathing. Labored breathing कैसी होती है? Effortful breathing, which person is having difficulty in breathing, so he has to make great effort to breathe. So that is called as labored breathing. Now snoring, it becomes louder and louder, and then the snoring is interrupted by a long silent gap. Now this long silent gap is actually the period of apnea. So labored breathing with snoring, then there is a period of apnea, जिसको हम कह देते हैं that is sleep apnea. Now during apnea, when there is cessation of breathing, there is accumulation of carbon dioxide in the body, which will stimulate the respiratory center, and when there is stimulation of respiratory center, person will make sudden attempts to breathe. Now these sudden attempts to breathe will result in loud snorts and gasping. So these are the features, and this causes the restlessness of the person. So restless sleep is there during night, and this will result in features, this will produce changes in the daytime as well. So person will of the sleep apnea, they, due to the fact that they have restless sleep, they have daytime drowsiness. In addition, they have increased heart rate due to increased sympathetic activity, and they are at the risk of having pulmonary and systemic hypertension and a greatly elevated risk of cardiovascular disease. These are the outcomes of the apneic episodes during the night. Sleep apnea causes a restless sleep, which produces its effects, and these effects are drowsiness in the daytime, increased sympathetic activity causing an increased heart rate, pulmonary and systemic hypertension, and a greatly elevated risk of cardiovascular disease. Now treatment of the obstructive sleep apnea is basically the treatment of the cause. So a surgery is performed which is called as jugulopalatopharyngoplasty, in which the obstruction is removed so that the airways remain open or patent during sleep, and we can give continuous positive airway pressure ventilation at night, and this continuous positive airway ventilation, airway pressure ventilation, it keeps the airways open, and the person will not have the episode of apnea. The other type is central sleep apnea. Now central sleep apnea, as I told you in the beginning, is because of the decreased activity of the respiratory control center. So if the drive of the respiratory control centers is decreased or they become unstable, so this can result in central sleep apnea. The other cause of central sleep apnea is the abnormality of the respiratory neuromuscular apparatus. So if there is some abnormal functioning of the neuromuscular apparatus, it can also result in sleep apnea, which is the central types. So central में we have two causes, either there is decreased drive of the respiratory control centers, or there is abnormality of the respiratory neuromuscular apparatus. Now the features are the same as of the obstructive sleep apnea, but one thing is that they may have a decreased ventilation when they are awake, and during sleep their breathing disorder is worsened. And the patients with central sleep apnea are extremely sensitive to small doses of sedatives and narcotics, because we know that sedatives and narcotics cause a decreased activity of respiratory center. So these patients of central sleep apnea already have decreased drive of respiratory control centers. So if they are given sedatives and narcotics, this can produce a great suppression of respiratory control centers. So these are very sensitive to the doses of sedatives and narcotics. The treatment for central sleep apnea is continuous positive airway pressure ventilation, and usually it does not have a good prognosis. Sleep apnea in most of the cases is due to obstructive sleep apnea. In about less than 1% or around 1% it can be central sleep apnea, and this central sleep apnea, it does not has a good prognosis. It is associated with a poor prognosis. The only treatment for this is to give continuous positive airway pressure ventilation at night. So this was about the sleep apnea, its two types, features, and the possible treatment options. So that's all for today's lecture. I hope you understand the lecture, and if you have any question you can ask me. You're very free to ask the questions, and thank you for your listening.